All right, I got a new abbreviated script. Maybe I'll try to cut it down somewhere. Good evening. This is the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Needham Conservation Commission. I'm Dave Hare, Conservation Commission Chair. Before we get started, I'm going to confirm that all members and staff are present and can hear me. When I call out your name, please respond. Sue?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Brett? Brett? You're on mute, I think.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm here.
Yeah, okay, Fred, Peter,
Here.
Allison,
Here.
Alina,
Here.
Deb,
You called it, Karen? Here.
and Clay.
Here.
Okay, so everybody's here. This open meeting of the Needham Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Healy's March 2023 extension of the open meeting law temporary provisions. All supporting materials have been provided to members of the commission and are available on the Conservation Commission website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Before we go to the first item on the agenda, let's cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each hearing on the agenda and then introduce the applicant and or their consultant to begin their project presentation. After conclusion of the applicant's presentation, I will call on each commission member to provide their comments or questions. Please hold until your name is called. After comments or questions from the commission members, I will solicit questions or comments from staff and then from the public. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response or questions, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you, and please state your name before speaking. And finally, each vote taken during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the meeting minutes. And I believe there are 7 meeting minutes that we need to approve. So first, let me ask if anybody has any questions or suggested modifications or whatever to the minutes.
I thank Sue for all of her additions or editing.
Thank you. I do have one question, actually,
Sure.
talking about the preamble. On all those minutes, which was after March 31st, it's on the old preamble, where Dave just mentioned the new preamble with Governor Healy's extension.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's necessary to change that on those minutes.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's.
Okay. Okay.
No,
That's
it's kind of, Dave kind of took it and revised it on his own, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to shorten it up.
Please call Huxley, Ken. Please call Huxley.
Excuse me?
Oh,
All right, and any other comments on the minutes? I'm going to read off the dates of the minutes and then entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for 4/27, 5/11, 5/26, 6/08, 6/22, 7/13, and 7/27 of 2023.
I motion to approve.
We have a second?
I second.
Okay.
I second.
Any discussion? All right, no discussion, so let's have a vote. Sue,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Allison,
Aye.
and Paulina,
Aye.
and Chair votes aye. So, good, we got that out of the way. So, I don't know, Deb, do you have any comments on enforcement or violation updates? You're
Sorry,
on-
I was muted. Yeah. I think Clay probably can just update you on the 311 Dedham dewatering over there.
So conservation staff, DPW staff, and Dave were all out on site with the applicant and the contractor for this site. As many of you are aware, the site was mostly disturbed right up to the 25-foot. I can't recall if last meeting it had been addressed yet, but they have fixed the erosion controls. For the most part, those held together in this most recent storm, but there was a blowout area where it looks like a lot of the silt may have been washed away. There's very little evidence, and it's kind of hard to track just based on the amount of rain that fell. There was no deposited soils going down the slope or down the 25-foot. Prior to the storm, they did commence with the dewatering. So we did inspect that dewatering area that they set up. They also ordered some of these like silt sack bags, not the kind that you would put into a catch basin, but these actual inflatable, almost like empty beanbag sacks that you pump the water into, and it allows the water to trickle out while holding the soil back, kind of made out of a filter fabric. They had been using those. The dewatering site as of yesterday looked good. It looked like it was capturing the sediments. So aside from any blowout that occurred, most of the water is drained out of the site, and the dewatering seems to have been successful. I believe the next step they're going to be trying to do is putting in like a sump pit so that they can have clean water flowing out. And once the clean water is flowing out, they'll be able to minimize some of that dewatering area that they have established within the 25-foot, and hopefully that'll negate long-term impacts to the trees and vegetations in that 25-foot buffer zone. From there, we'll be in touch with them in coordination with DPW and building as well, to make sure that the foundation goes in and things can get backfilled and the old unwanted soils removed from site appropriately. So we're seeing progress after this major storm. It probably is as good as it can be in its current conditions. So not much else to report on, and no further violation actions are recommended at this time.
Where's all the water going, Clay?
So the dewatering is occurring on site. Some portion of it, ideally they were pumping out at a slow enough rate that the filter fabric was catching it within the 25-foot, and it was infiltrating there on site. I imagine during the rainstorm there was quite a bit of water that just by nature of how much rain we got, the water was probably draining from that dewatering kind of basin they have set up. But when
that was
dry
storm runoff.
yeah, during dry operations, it's pretty much been infiltrated within the 25-foot through a filter fabric and through those filter bags.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else, Deb?
Nope, that's it for that.
All right, so there were two other things that we wanted to discuss, and Deb sent around some information on those. So one item was whether or not the commission would like to establish a code of conduct, and the select board has adopted a code of conduct, and they sent around a template and suggested that various boards around town use that as a guide for establishing their own code of conduct. So I would ask two questions. One, does the commission want to establish a code of conduct? So let's open that up for discussion.
Do you expand on that? I saw the email from Deb, but I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But we don't have to follow. We could do whatever we want as far as the code of conduct, but I've read it and I think it's okay. It needs some, fine tuning to make it applicable more to the Conservation Commission, but it's pretty straightforward. Fred,
Is
you
it-
had
Oh,
a
sorry.
comment, or unless you had anything else planned?
I was just, I wasn't sure what the code of conduct, is it just how we behave as a commission or like what we stand for? And didn't.
No,
know
no,
if you
it's
expand on it.
yeah, it's how we conduct ourselves as a commission. It says, sort of basic things. And also, like, we're gonna attend every meeting or unless there's some circumstance, and we're gonna try to read everything before the meeting. That it's kind of, boilerplate stuff, but
Yeah, it's preparations for meetings, conduct at meetings, conduct outside of meetings. Use of town council, public records, trainings, that type of thing.
yeah.
If you'd like, if people haven't got a chance to look at it, I'm sure it's not an emergency and we could hold off
Yeah.
voting till next meeting.
Well, Fred, you had a comment?
Well, I think you answered most of my questions with the subsequent discussion, but I was just wondering if there's a need for things that I assume that there must be codes that apply to all committees, like the conflict of interest thing and the open meeting rules. So
There are state laws, and hopefully you had taken some, I think there was a little course that you have to take about the open meeting law and all that. Yeah. So yeah, there are other things that guide conduct, but this is something that the select board is suggesting. And again, I don't think it's a big deal. So, Sue, you had some comments?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how many other, or maybe they haven't done it yet, select board might be the only one in encouraging it. But do other town committees, commissions, boards have a code of conduct right now? I know we do have to go through every other year, we have to go through the conflict of interest and with the state. But I'm just curious if any other in Needham, if other committees, towns, commissions, boards do have a code of conduct, or is this a new thing?
Well, I can't answer that question. Maybe Deb can, but it was just like less than a month ago that the select board, passed their own code of conduct, and then they sent this memo around to all the other boards saying, hey, here's a template, and we strongly encourage you to adopt a code of conduct. And they said that was basically good
Right.
standard
Right.
practice, good governance
Right.
practice to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
Allison?
don't know the answer to that, Sue.
Allison, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, when I read it, I just thought besides there were a lot of things about the open meeting law and things that we already, conflict of interest stuff we already know, but I mean, everything there, nothing was objectionable at all, was stuff that is just self-evident if you're going to join the board. And so I have no trouble adopting it. I just think it's interesting that you have to have a code of conduct because you'd think that, it would sort of be self-evident, but I have no objection to adopting a code of conduct for those who don't have it internally.
Yeah.
Mm,
I don't think anybody in this board has a problem, but maybe on other boards there are. So
yeah, I
I
think
don't-
that's probably the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we have to adopt it. It's suggested.
I could do either way,
Yeah.
whatever the group wants to do.
All right, Peter, you have a comment?
I agree with Allison. I mean, I think this was drawn up to address a specific set of instances in the select board, widely reported in our local newspaper, I think, that haven't come up here, but could in the future. So, I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't see anything problematic about it.
Okay, Reed? You had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, as a public body, right, I think just anything we can do to help promote the public's confidence in us, and I think is helpful. And yeah, again, it's all stuff that I think we're either obligated to do or doing anyway. So I think, I just think it's worth considering.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel the same way. So here's what I would suggest. It sounds like the consensus is that we should do this, and so I would like to solicit a volunteer to take a look at the template that the select board put together, and maybe make it specific to our conservation commission, and then we could review that at a subsequent meeting, and if everybody's in favor, we could vote on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
So you volunteering?
Yeah, I'm volunteering.
All right, that's great. Because I was going to suggest you being the lawyer in our group here. No, that's great. So maybe next meeting or thereafter, we can review it and vote to adopt it.
Sounds good.
All right, great. So let's move on to the second issue that we want to discuss, and that is how we conduct our meetings. As you may know, we have been operating under the guidance that the governor has been, Governor Baker originally adopted, and it was re-upped by Governor Healy this past March to allow certain provisions of modifications to the open meeting law, basically allowing fully remote meetings or hybrid meetings, and not precluding public meetings. So it's been suggested that now that we have a couple new members on our committee, that we take a look at this again. I believe there was a informal poll taken this spring by the conservation committee, and I think the consensus was we're going to keep the status quo. But now let's open this up for discussion as far as what we want to do moving forward. I think our options, it was kind of complicated. Like Deb and I were trying to figure out what the town's current position is, and
So just a little update, Dave. I was in a meeting today that town council happened to be at. So I brought it up to him. And so I think, as I mentioned before, we essentially have two options right now. We can stay remote, or we can do an in-person remote hybrid. So the town had come up with a policy that if the governor hadn't extended the remote, I don't know the word.
yeah, the revised guidance.
The revised guidance. If he hadn't, then we were going to have to go with the guidance document that the select board had put together, which I forwarded you guys all a copy of. But since it has been extended, that is not enacted currently. If we did decide that we wanted to go back in person with the remote hybrid, we would be required to have at least one commission member in person, and the rest could be remote. He had checked, he thought it had to be the chair had to be in person, but apparently that's not the case. It would just need to be one member.
I thought it was all 7, Deb.
Sorry?
I thought it was all 7 commissioners that had to be in person unless there
No.
was a good excuse.
Nope.
Oh.
No,
was-
that was if the governor didn't if he didn't continue the policy. So it goes until March of 2025 that we're allowed to keep the remote option. So if you did decide to go back in person, then there would only be the requirement to have one Conservation Commission member in person.
Yeah, and I think the select board of the town is encouraging all the boards to keep the remote option.
I
open-
think it's
open for the
pretty
public.
mandatory.
Yeah,
It's,
for the public, because, you know,
Yeah.
this sort of like gets into the whole concept of work from home, you know, everybody's used to, you know, the remote participation.
Right,
And they
right.
expect it. And I'm speaking of the public
mm-hmm.
in that regard. So,
So all that being said, so if we did go back in person, that would really require Clay and myself to also be in person, because we would have to run the hybrid and be there if we did have people from the public coming in to view the meeting in person.
yeah, I would further say that, you know, if we did the hybrid, you know, if there wasn't a majority of members that were gonna come in person, it would be hardly worth it, in my view.
Mhm.
Can we,
If
can
there
we
was just one,
request,
you know, if there was just one person from the commission there, I just don't see that
Mhm.
being.
can
very
we,
effective. So anyway, let's just open it up for comment, discussion.
Go ahead, Sue.
can we request as a conservation commission that 7 commissioners could be there or other, I don't, I mean, that's crazy to me. What they're
Right.
saying, that only one, I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Obviously,
Wait.
they're not in.
Sue, I think they're saying a minimum of one.
Right.
You know, if the conservation, if the Conservation Commission wanted to have everybody, you know, in person, I mean, we could do that.
Okay,
Right.
so
That's
we
what
were
you would
request
want, is
that.
everyone to be in person. But there
we-
has to be a minimum of one Conservation Commission member in person in order to make it hybrid.
Yeah, my understanding is we can't mandate the public to be there in person.
No. No. And the presenters and such could do either as well.
So is anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
I would definitely go for in person. If all 7 commissioners and Devin and Clay would be in person. Otherwise, I don't see I can't find any reason for being remote anymore. I just, I don't know, I've kind of lost the purpose of being remote. If we as a commission said, if all commissioners could be there with Devin and Clay in person, I would definitely vote for in person, because then it would be worth it.
But under that circumstance, we couldn't necessarily mandate that the public or even the applicants had to be there in person.
Right,
Right.
right.
All right, well, Peter, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so for the benefit of commissioners who've never had the experience of doing this in person, I'd like to run down some of the differences in the experience, and some of this is unknown since we've never done the hybrid before. But 2 of the things that would have to change would be, 1, the timing would shift to later, to 7:30, and the other thing, and Devin Clay, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the hearings would have to be scheduled. They couldn't just be run one after another, that they would actually have timestamps on them. And typically the first one would start at 7:45 and then 8, 8:15, and so on and so forth. Which means that occasionally there'd be large gaps. If there's a continuation, then you have basically 15 minutes of time where you might do other business, but you might just, you know, wait. And so there is something to be said for the efficiency of the online virtual mode versus the face-to-face mode. I hear the sort of wish to get back into the public. But I certainly don't want to go back into the days of people putting maps up on easels that no one can actually see. And I assume with screens that would solve that problem. But just to go back, there are some inefficiencies in that system that I think people should be aware of. Those meetings tended to last a lot longer and often would stretch into 10:30, 11, given the structure of the way the hearings were.
Okay, thanks. Paulina, you have a comment?
I was just curious. I don't think we necessarily need to have a schedule for the meetings. I don't know.
No, a lot of towns don't.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we could, that way we can avoid the whole, gap between meetings, but I'm also more in favor of keeping it online for the purposes of I can pull up their narratives and their maps on my screen and then listen to them at the same time, but also when they pull up stuff on their screen, I can see it much better than if we were in person with the little easel. Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, great. Let's hear from our new commissioners. Any thoughts or questions?
Well,
I just
yeah,
want to mention that we do have the screen in that room, so we do have the ability to put the plans up on the big screen. It doesn't just have to be on the easel, but
Allison, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think that for me, I loved it in person, but I also love the fact that the public was there. There is something very different that happens when you're in a room with another human being and they are reacting to you when you're reacting to them. It's different on a screen. It is sometimes less efficient, but I think that it can be a lot more rewarding, and you can really sort of get into the nitty-gritty a little bit better sometimes. But I feel that if everybody isn't there and it's this, we're all there slogging it out and they're not there, but they're on a screen, that a lot of the reason for in-person, it isn't just to be with the commissioners, which is lovely to be with the commissioners. That's not what I'm saying. It's the public as well. And the fact that they don't make the public come, I think is a fatal flaw in this whole idea. I don't think people are thinking about, and the other thing is, as a designer myself, presenting before other conservation commissioners, when I present in person, it is a very different preparation than when you present on the screen. It's completely different, and you work a lot harder and you're much more invested in it. So I think that there's just a fatal flaw in this. All the commissioners have to be there, or one has to be there, but the public doesn't have to be there.
I
So
agree.
I think if it's not all of it, then I vote remote, because I don't think it works. That's just my old lady opinion.
All right, Fred, you got some.
yeah, I have similar feelings that the quality of the interaction and the experience, there's some things that are lost in remote meetings, and probably the criteria of making decisions, it's fine, but we're also trying to make connections with people, and we're trying to be persuasive. And I think those things are a little harder to do on a video. You're not making the same kind of personal connection with people. So, and as a newcomer, I sort of am sorry that I don't sit in the room with you. I'm trusting that that'll happen eventually. I really enjoyed coming to the office today to sign some documents and meeting Deb and Clay and Elisa at the office. So yeah, that's my bit.
I got a question for you. Like some people, I think yourself, are away during the summer. Is that, how do you factor that in?
Yeah, no, there's no question that the convenience factor is big for me, and I could hardly ask everyone to come in and meet in person if I want to be in Maine most of the summer. So I mean, it turns out that I do make a fair number of trips to Needham for this and that. And and I wouldn't mind, but I think Allison, I would agree with Allison that if I'm not sure that the hybrid part would work as well. And there might be resentment that, some people are working harder than others and making more, I don't know.
Let me just clarify, there are two pieces of the hybrid. Okay, one is what the commissioners do.
Yeah.
And the other is what the public does. Now, my understanding is, as a commission, we can decide on what we want to do as far as commissioners are concerned. Okay, as long as if we go in a hybrid mode, at least a minimum of one commissioner has to show up, but we don't have that flexibility on the public side.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my understanding.
I guess my last thought was, I didn't know if there were any commissioners for whom the video format has been a hardship. But I would be willing to make a strong effort to go in person if there were enough people that cared about it, and it was hard. It was much easier for some people to do that. But otherwise, I'm happy to stay with the remote.
All right, is any other comments? I got Allison, you got your hand up, but maybe that's just residual. Anybody else?
Dave,
Yeah,
how do we know that the public's not going to show up? I mean, maybe a lot of the public would show up in person.
well, I'll give you my opinion, but it's not based on any facts. But as far as the public showing up, seems like the only general public shows up are abutters that have some issues. Okay, and they may or may not show up in person. But my understanding of most of the professionals, the consultants that are out there working in this business, they would prefer remote, because they're always juggling a lot of different things, and some of them live out of town, and with the traffic these days and everything, it's sort of like the work from home kind of mentality. So I mean, it's just my feeling, knowing a bunch of professionals in the business, and I would not expect a lot of them to show up. So
Okay.
is there any other thoughts or comments? It seems like we're just like before. There's bunch of mixed opinions, emotions here on this issue.
Actually,
I'm just trying to think of what would be the next best step. I mean, we could take an informal poll. If somebody wanted to propose a motion, we could vote on the motion, but I'm open for thoughts about where we go.
I do
Colleen also has
have a
her hand
couple
up.
more things.
All right, let's.
Okay.
All right, Sue, you're all set. You got any more comments? Paulina, you had your
Well,
hand up.
I just wanted to, yeah, I did, but Paulina probably had her hand up before I did.
Yeah, Paulina.
Two more things I just wanted to say, but I can wait.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sue.
Yeah,
Okay. First thing is, I do think having a hard copy map right in front of you, you could scribble on and to make notes on, and to, look clearly at the buffer zones, and really see what's going on with planting plans and mitigation plans. I think that's extremely important in person. And the other thing is, I do think it's a longer meeting with remote. It can be, because you have to recite a few things. You have to go through each commissioner for a roll call, for a vote, I just tend to think, my experience, it feels longer. I feel an in-person meeting went quickly. I'm sorry, Peter, but I disagree a little bit with that. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, all right, Paulina, you had a comment?
I think last time we talked about this, you mentioned that we would be starting at 7:30 or 8 instead of the 7, what we currently are starting at 7 o'clock. I was wondering if that was a definite, or like if we were to go in person, could we begin at 7? Or do we have to start at 7:30? Can we set like our own? Can we, as a commission, decide on a different time, or is it like a specific schedule because we have to book a room or something?
Yeah, I think that would be up to the commission. So what we wanted to do, right? I think
the 7:30 was because of some of us who are no longer here were coming from Boston from work.
traffic.
And we couldn't get there. We had to be, it would just take too long, and the schedules of the T and the commuter rail, et cetera, weren't working for 7. You have to leave work too early. I think that's where it came from, but
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
I agree. All right. Any other thoughts or comments?
I just wanted to let Sue know, I don't know how this is gonna end up, but I would be happy to put together a hardcover, hard copy of all the materials to send to you so that
Oh,
you
no,
could
I'm
have
fine.
plans and such.
Nick, if we're on remote, I would just do it remote. It's just that, sitting, interacting with
Yeah, I
everyone
know.
else. And
You were just talking about scribbling on plans and stuff, so I figured
Yeah.
I'd put it out there if you wanted
Thank-
actual plans.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
I would
Thank
point
every,
out, I would point out that like I can't read plans because they're just too small. That's why I personally like being on a computer that you can blow up the plans, But again, a lot of people that like some of these hybrid meetings, I've participated in hybrid meetings, so people usually bring their computers anyway, and follow along whatever the online thing is. So anyway, I'm looking for some input as to where you think we should go next. You want to take an informal poll, or does somebody want to propose a motion for a specific thing, or discuss it further?
I think last time this makes sense. We just had everybody email us individually. And we kind of had those numbers as a staff in case there's anybody that wants to either remain anonymous or just get a feel for what the numbers are.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Sort of like I call that an informal poll. Is that okay with everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So why don't we do that? And then depending on how that turns out, we'll do the next step. All right.
So the options are remote only or hybrid, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'd say the options are status quo, which is remote for everybody. Okay, or remote, hybrid for the commissioners and hybrid for the public. And a sub option would be for the commissioners to say that we agree that everybody should show up in person.
But it would still have to be hybrid.
Right, it would have to be hybrid with regard to the public.
So do you want Clay and me to send you out an email about
or-
this, and then you can respond?
Or Clay, you could do like a doodle poll or something, right? Yeah, or an email, whatever. Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other business that we want to discuss? I know it's not an agenda, but does anybody have anything that we should, they think we should be putting on the agenda for future meetings, other than, our normal course of business?
I had two quick comments, but before we do that, we do have to formally open and then vote to continue 49 Green Street, the golf course, just for continuity.
I forgot about that. Sorry. All right, so why don't we do that? Let's open the hearing for 49 Green Street, which is DEP file number. Wait a minute. 234-911, notice of intent.
And they have formally requested a continuation to August 24th at 7 p.m.
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the hearing for 49 Green Street to August 24th?
Motion to continue the hearing for 49 Green Street.
Seconded.
All right, let's vote. Sue,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Peter,
Hi,
Allison,
Aye.
Helena,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. All right. What was your second item?
So just a quick note that DEP has followed up with us about some of our special conditioning in riverfront areas. So I'm going to be drafting an additional stock condition for us to use for your review on any of our riverfront area mitigation, just protections in perpetuity. They said that it was pretty common that the language should be adjusted, and I think they're going to do that for another one of the agent corner meetings for exactly that, but we'll be having them review a stock condition and bringing it to you for your review, just so that we can start including that in any riverfront projects we get in the future. The other note that I had was that Deb and I were talking about programming again, and in the past we had discussed with the commission if there's any commission members that wanted to hold educational or recreational programming. I know we had talked to Peter in the past about, like a bird watching exercise, things like that. So I'm just throwing out a note for people to think about anything they might be interested in hosting with us. And then next meeting, it's going to be a relatively light meeting again next week, depending on what the golf course brings to us. I don't think we have any new full filings that I'm posting legals for. So we'll have some time. We can start maybe discussing and getting the process, the seedlings kind of started on some of that educational programming as well. So I just wanted to plant that for thought between now and 2 weeks from now.
There's also tree policy that hasn't been finalized.
Oh yeah, we were talking about it. Sue and I were talking about that the other day, and yeah, so we could put that on the agenda. I think we have a draft of some changes, some of which I suggested, and what I think the best procedure would be is to send that information around, solicit comments from everybody, incorporate the comments into the draft, and then go over the draft, and if it's acceptable, we could vote to adopt it.
Or we could meet in person, Dave.
Hey, whatever, come over to my house. We'll work
It
on
might
it.
go more quickly.
We'll work on it together. Yeah, and I was also talking to Deb. I was thinking about drafting up a policy for stormwater, but
So I was actually in a stormwater bylaw update meeting this afternoon. And so basically they had Beta review the stormwater bylaw and
Yep.
kind of give recommendations. So we kind of had a meeting about that today. And I did bring up how you were talking about coming up with some kind of standard with the building department about what we're looking for as far as stormwater. And so they were talking about implementing something like that in the bylaw itself or in the regulations that still need to be finalized. So I did bring that up though.
Yeah, good, good. Yeah, because like trees and stormwater, it seemed to come up with almost every project he says.
I think that's an excellent idea, this stormwater policy.
Mhm.
I think it's an
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that, you know, there's varying soils around town and, you know, I think there needs to be a little more, you know, firmness in how to evaluate these soils so that people don't put in these infiltrators that aren't going to work. That being said, if you're not near a sewer, I
Yeah.
don't know what else you can do. But anyway, there's certainly some work that needs to be done in that area. All right, well, if there's no other thoughts or comments, then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
A second.
all right. Sue,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Peter,
Hi.
Allison,
Aye.
Helena.
Aye.
Dave votes aye. All right. We got 12 minutes to spare. Now, did I do okay, Deb? Or
I'm
Excellent.
impressed, Dave.
okay, great. Well, thanks everybody, and you know, enjoy your 2-hour extra time tonight.
Thank you.
Here we go. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.